Ladies and gentlemen, friends, colleagues, listeners, and anybody who might be tuning in for the first time, we've got another episode, and I think it's going to be a very, very interesting one indeed. It's definitely a subject matter that I was interested in when I first heard our guest speaking about it. So today, we've got David Shomar, and he's the Vice President, Civil Security, Middle East and Africa with SAAB Air Traffic Management. So David, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you, Chris, for having me on, and thanks for Dubai Airport Show for putting on such a wonderful series. This has been really interesting.
No, it is, and it's right. You've just reminded me there. Big thank you to Dubai Air Show, and it's been rescheduled now, so it's going to take place at the end of October. And fingers crossed, that everything will stay, so that we'll all be able to see each other there. But well done to them for putting on this series. Really appreciate it. So, David, for anybody that's listening in now, just a very quick overview of what you do and what your responsibilities are.
Well, my responsibilities include the business development and overseeing projects as they do in the Middle East and Africa for air traffic management for SAAB. That includes selling our products as well as making sure that our reputation, which is really stellar, remains so in the Middle East and in Africa, and continue on the growth that SAAB has put on air traffic management and the success that we have had, introducing new products and new solutions. That's my job. I've been at it for about 14 years now. I joined them in 2007, and it's been a wonderful ride. I've really enjoyed it.
Very good. Thank you very much. Now, I probably first heard what you were doing, and it really triggered an interest, which was back in 2017 at the Dubai Air Show, when they had those mini talks. And I was explaining to you earlier, I had a lot of admiration because they're a little bit difficult and distracting, because you're giving a presentation and there's people moving in front of you and going from one side to the other. But it stood out, and I was so interested about the digital, the digital airport and the digital, the remote digital control tower. So can you just tell us a little bit more about that? Because from what I understand, it from the time of the idea to the time of the first practical example was about 8 or 9 years, wasn't it?
Well, actually, the whole idea started in 2009. That is correct. By 2013, we had certified system operation. So it's really didn't even take that huge of a time. However, it is a new system that is at the time that was established because of a business structure did not work for airports that were far away from the central areas of a country. And we were tasked by LFV, the air navigation service provider of Sweden at the time, to find a solution, a business solution to airports that only have 2 or 3 basically movements a day.
Yeah.
And how do you do that one and have three air traffic controllers with 3 shifts sitting over there and working? It just didn't make any business sense. So we were tasked with that, and that's where the idea of what we called at the time remote tower for remote airport came out. It has since developed into a completely different system, as you and I have talked. It's now a system that can run any airport at any place, no matter the size of the airport, doing digitally, enhancing control by having all sorts of system integrated into what we call the OTW, or out the window display. And all those enhancements have actually improved the way that you do controlling of an airport and of the airspace above it.
Okay, can you just explain so that people can visualize what you mean by OTW, so out the window?
So the way that the remote tower concept came about, like I said, for controlling towers, we needed to come up with a system that actually, be able to control through cameras what is seen at a faraway airport, then send that information to the remote tower control center where the controller sits. Well, what we wanted to do from the beginning was, since it's a new system and it is security is extremely important as far as aircrafts are concerned, what we needed to do is not change 2 things for the air traffic controller. 1, their environmental conditions, and 2, the way that they actually control control the airport and the airspace.
Yes.
So to do so, the cameras were put at 14 cameras for 360 degrees, so that you can see as if you're sitting at the tower, in the physical tower, you can see outside 360 degrees. And then we translated that one to another 14 screens at the control center. And those 14 screens were put in 360 degrees, just like you would have at an actual tower. Those screens, which took the feed from the cameras, the 14 cameras, is what we call the OTW, or out the window display. So we're displaying what we normally would see if you're sitting in a tower.
And probably seeing more than you would do if you were on site.
Yeah, that's what came about as we developed the system. It turns out we can do so much with it. For example, one quick example was we can actually, because it's digital, we can remove the raindrops from the actual image. We can enhance the image by putting in what we call P2Z cameras. So pan, tilt, and zoom cameras can now be used instead of binoculars. And then you can take that image and put it as a picture-on-picture in that out the window display, OTW. So all of a sudden now the controller, instead of putting their binoculars on and seeing only that area, now they can actually keep looking at the whole airspace that they're controlling and still see a zoomed image right on the out the window display.
And I would imagine on top of that, where people in traditional situations, they'd be looking out, looking down, looking at the systems, etc. So a lot of that information, wind speed, etc., you can put up on the screen that they're looking at.
You know what, Chris? You're spoken like a true air traffic controller is what you just did. Most air traffic controllers get constantly from their supervisor, heads up, because they have so many systems that they're looking at now.
Yeah.
Every time they have a new solution, they put another screen in front of them. So heads up. With this system now, we can integrate all sorts of systems that can then, you're only looking on out the window display, or only looking at the window. And so, yes, we can show the airspeed, we can show all the weather conditions that's on there. We can also now integrate it with radar systems and wide area multilateration systems, and able to put the tag traveling with the aircraft instead of actually having to look at electronic flight strips. It travels with it.
So when they're looking at the screen now, they can see them all coming in and they know exactly which aircraft it is.
Exactly. They can do all of that one. They can also, the pan, tilt, and zoom camera that I told you about, the P2Z camera, this one can be programmed so that flight 123 coming in, please follow that flight in all the way down to threshold. So you can actually start the zooming of the aircraft when it enters your airspace, and it carries it all the way down to threshold.
It's incredible, huh? And also,
these enhancements were fascinating. I'll tell you one of the most fascinating enhancements that we ran across, and it was by accident. I call it the Madame Curie invention of SAAB. So we were trying to take a picture of the actual housing of the cameras to put in our brochures.
Yeah.
So we sent this drone up to take a look at the camera housing and take a picture and video of that. Wouldn't you know it, the system picked up the drones. So the system is so sensitive that any 4 pixels on the screen that move, it immediately puts a square around it, says you got a moving object in your airspace. So it picked up the drone. So we were able now to pick up drones, which we're able to do now on a regular basis. And
which is ever more important.
That came about.
Yeah, and that's so important now with
yes,
some of the fools that are trying to interfere with airspace by sending up the drones. It's crazy. But that's a great thing. And I would imagine as well, and I think it's confirmed, that they can also have night vision or infrared, so they can actually see the same tags and everything else at night as well, which they wouldn't have done before.
Yes. So 2 things on that one. For at least the SAAB system, SAAB has a company called SAAB Digital Air Traffic Management, SDATS, which runs this solution. For the SAAB system, we use such high-resolution cameras that what we are able to do is, without using of infrared, the camera uses the ambient light from the airport to actually light up the targets. You can see it even with a regular camera. However, Once it starts leaving the ambient light, we can turn on the infrared cameras and we can still see the aircraft at night. Correct.
That's amazing, amazing. And I'm assuming that all of the other areas, whether it's to do with having the equipment ready, if aircraft are delayed, or if there's any other services that are required, everything can be coordinated through this system better than in the old way.
Yes, you can easily then see that. So one of the things that I think this system has done is digitalize the eyes of the controller. That's basically what it did. So in digitalizing the eyes of the controller, which in the old days, only the controller could see, she or he could see the outside, what is going on. Now, since we digitalized that, we can translate that one into different screens, into different locations using redundancy. So if one area goes down, you can have it shown in another area. So your ACC center, for example, could be a place where you can have another system in case something goes on to do it. It is actually, this system has been used for contingency tower operations so much better, because you don't want to build another tower, a concrete tower, to do a contingency tower in case your tower goes down.
No, exactly.
Very, very well in that regard.
So this fits in nicely then with the risk assessment and business continuity and emergency response and everything, because if I'm assuming that if you've got a virtual tower, you can actually have virtual tower A, virtual tower B. It's
correct. Yes. So we can centralize the ANS, Air Navigation Service Provider, many airports. We can streamline the infrastructure with that. It requires less training, and you'll have simple maintenance and spares. All of that happens because you have a system that now can centralize all the air navigation service providers. And you can actually use it also to, social distance or physical distance. Controllers as well. I mean, this all came about from, unfortunately, the pandemic we are facing through. To me, there is a question. There's no question that this world is going through this pandemic. It has had a major negative impact on aviation sector, whether it's the air navigation service providers, the airlines, the airports, and the solution providers like SAAB. We've had very negative things happen because of that. The question is, are we going to say, "Oh, woe is me," and just things are not going to be the same? Oh my God, everything in the world is going to be ending, or are we going to use this opportunity right now to really think through and ask ourselves some important questions about where we're going to go from here when the next phase comes about?
Yeah.
So what will we come out of this, induced coma? Well, the answer to that question is nobody knows. But should we plan for it? What will the aviation environment look like, right? And better yet, should things return back to the way we were doing business before COVID-19? We do that. And I think also we should be looking at how can we, all stakeholders in aviation, emerge best from this phase, so that as to be a better position for the next phase in the future. Can we cooperate with one another? When we ask those kind of questions, I think there are some very interesting solutions that are very positive for us in the future. But we got to start addressing them as the air traffic management community right now.
I totally agree. And one of the things that we're trying to do, and myself and Salem, we speak after every podcast. We're trying now, without taking away any of the credit, recognition, respect for all of the care workers, the frontline workers, which is incredible. And please God, one of the things that everybody must, should, and shall do after this is not forget. And things need to be done for all of those sectors that was never done before. With that in mind, and also with one eye crying with regards to the people that have lost their lives, there has to be the other eye smiling with the learnings for the future. Otherwise, those lives lost would be a waste of time. And what people have got to do now, they have got to now start doing things better and for the right reasons, and with more energy and less bureaucracy and administrative blocks, etc. People have got to start becoming enablers for business now to get it back. And we do a Saturday morning show, and myself and I've got a friend and colleague, Steve Dixon. And one of the things that we did was, at the very beginning, we just mapped out dates that we thought would be key milestones. Now, we're not experts in any way or form, but we did it based on a certain degree of logic and time. And then when things, we're always used to a certain crisis, volcano, terrorism, an accident or whatever. And it happens really quickly, and then you have to recover, and then you start moving forward. This is something that's knocked everybody out. However, when it does start to get momentum coming back, it's going to be on the hurry up. And people are going to want to do things faster. So people have got to start collaborating more and seeing what makes things more efficient, what makes things more, having more of a longevity about them, continuity, sustainability, resilience, agility, whatever you want to say. So the relationship element of leadership is going to have to change somewhat. And to be positive and to collaborate more, to cooperate more, needs a lot more communication. Now, we've spoken about being positive, and you've spoken now about digitalization, etc. Those are the things that the whole business needs to embrace and engage and push now, because it's going to start coming back at a fast pace.
I agree with you. I have an acronym. It's called
I love them.
See the Future, CSEE. And that stands for Sustainability, Efficiency, and Environmental Impact. These are the three things that we should be looking at right now to solve when we come out of the COVID-19. We should be looking at the solutions right now. There are systems available right now to help us solve sustainability, efficiency, and environmental impact.
Yep.
We talked about digital towers, for example. That addresses some sustainability issues, right? You have the centralized and the like. Efficiency, though, and environmental impact are also addressed by CDM, collaborative decision-making products that are solutions that are out there, in which all stakeholders work together so that they can do things more efficiently. And also by having WAM and ADSB system, WAM, wide area multilateration, instead of having each country, each airport have its own WAM system, we should be looking at a regional WAM system so that we can all share the information better, and we can redesign the air routes around the airport using that information so that it'll be more efficient, so that we don't have the kind of a mess we have currently before COVID-19 of congested airspaces and the like. And ADSB could be used for oceanic routes and the like, also to help us in determining that. So there are ways to reach sustainability, ways to reach efficiency, and reduce environmental impact by changing the routes and having things that are more and more efficiency. This will lead to a continuity and plans how we're going to be able to do things in the future in case something similar happens, God forbid, and partnerships and synergies cooperation between airport, airlines, the whole airport environment, including solution providers and the like. That's how we're going to get there. The question then becomes, okay, great job, Mr. Shomar. You just identified how we can do things, but how is an ANSP, an airline, an airport that is so cash-strapped right now pay for that?
Yep.
There, where we need to start thinking from a solution provider and from airports and ANSPs about a true solution. I think there are solutions for this. I think that we can't afford, first of all, to go back to business as usual. Nobody can afford that.
No, 100%.
So therefore, 100%. If we're not going to be able to afford that, well, we got to come up with a solution, right? So there's a couple of solutions. One way would be partnership with solution providers between the ANSPs, the airports, and the like, in which instead of them purchasing the system, okay, they can either lease the system,
exactly,
have ways for the system, allow the system itself to pay for itself from future revenue that the system actually develops. So there are ways that you can do things. It's just we have to think positively, and we have to think about the right questions to ask, which you, Chris, have mentioned.
Yeah, 100%. And I again, you've endorsed something that's common sense, and people should make a list of what makes sense, and also listen to wise men speaking. And when somebody makes a little bit of sense, don't just think, oh, that's right. People need to do it and do it quickly. And what you said there about the collaboration, it's so important. And again, to focus on making sure that we've got a cake that we can slice before fighting over the slices and the cake hasn't even been baked yet. That's what I don't understand. There's no need to everybody keep paying for the same things themselves when you can get one common system or a common program and everything, even from equipment. They've got to start looking at pooling equipment, having technology that can direct the best use or the last use or when it should be used, etc. So many things that can be put in place. Now, on the positivity side of things, David, and you're a man who loves to innovate and provide solutions. People are frightened that when they do come back, and now you've everywhere in the press you're looking at all of the redundancies, and people now know what the word furlough means, but the redundancies is a big fear factor. And when you look at people that invested in themselves and got their own pilot's license, and now there's so many pilots being laid off, cabin crew being laid off, aircraft being retired early, it's inevitable that there's going to be some shrinkage. But that shrinkage is tough and it's hard, but it's necessary to make sure the business is sustainable moving forward. You agree with that?
I totally agree with that. And, part of the way that we've ran the world before, financially, economically speaking, they use words like, which I hate, but it's being used as creative destruction. And we're going to go through not so creative a destruction as we're coming out of COVID-19. No question about that. There's going to be changes in attitude. There's going to be changes in needs. There are going to be changes in who has the actual technical expertise to fulfill those needs. There's going to be an excess of, like you mentioned, pilots and the like. But that's going to be a transition period. What we need to do is, as a society, we need to look at what's best and what's most efficient for society to go through. I mean, really, do we keep ignoring another one that's coming at us very quickly, which is climate change? Do we want to ignore that one, or do we want to adapt to it? Shouldn't we be coming up with solutions that actually reduce the carbon footprint, which a lot of airports and ANSPs, by the way, were doing before COVID-19, right? Yeah. Looking at the environmental impact and stuff. Well, that creates new jobs, new ways of looking at things, completely new markets to take a look at it and stuff. So yes, there are going to be an excess number of pilots, but that's where we should be starting to think, not where we end our thinking. We shouldn't be saying, oh, well, that's it. This is the way it's going to be. We should be able to look at things and do them differently. Can pilots now fly drone aircraft? Can drone aircraft take a look at different things right now and make it more efficient, either through less carbon footprint or delivering the needs to certain areas around the world, which is a lot more difficult to do now? Yeah. Are ways to think of things positively. You don't only have to think of things negatively. And unfortunately, some people that think about things negatively tend to keep us down. I think we need a vision of the future. We need to change how we think about how things were and think how things we want them to be. How do we want the world to be?
Yeah, no, it's a bit of a conundrum because everybody has to be positive. And then on the other hand, you look at the amount of people that have been affected by this now through no fault of their own. And I think there's a moral responsibility there as well to keep those people trained, whether it's remotely or whatever, or job shares, whatever it is to try and keep as many of those people involved, especially in our industry, because it's such a great industry and it needs people who are trained. We don't want to lose them. And, in a few years, 2-3 years maybe, or once the vaccine is in place, things will speed up again. We need people to be ready so that we're prepared. Now, in your presentation back in 2017, you mentioned Professor Christensen and Disruptive Innovation.
Yes.
And I thought that was good as well. Do you want to just elaborate on that a little?
Yeah, I mean the line that I use with him, which I love a lot, is that the only constant thing in life is change. I love that line. The only thing that's constant in life is change. We're always changing. The question is, are we adapting to the change, or are we just letting change disrupt us and put us back? Anything that survives in an environment, period, requires adaptability, requires you adapt to the changes that are coming towards you. So now we have a timeout. We are right now in a coma, and we're about to come out of the coma. Let's use this time to think about how things can be, the way that things are going to change. We know that they're going to change, how we are going to come up with solutions to adapt them. That's the kind of thinking that I'm encouraging our industry to do. Not just to say that, we have access of pilots, access of aircraft, access of airports that have expanded beyond the need of expansion. No, let's think in terms of those pilots. They have huge amount of experience. We could use them. We could use them to train how to fly, like I mentioned, drones. This is an example. Is there going to be enough for all the pilots that have been going to be laid off, maybe to fly drones and stuff like that? I don't know, but you're going to see pilots moving into different directions. And all of a sudden we're looking at the world the way it's going to be and trying to come up with means of sustenance for people that have been displaced that fit that future. That's my fit the future with the means of sustenance for people that have lost that means of sustenance currently, and do it so we can better society as well.
Yeah, no, 100%. And care, and like I said, it's when the rapid ramp up comes, it's still caring about the people that have been displaced.
Yes.
And I think that one word now is so important, that all industries and businesses come out of this with it, with the fact that they've got to care more and not be focused on, speed, the bottom line, the quick dollar, because it's proven now how many companies can't sustain themselves for more than 3 months. And that's a big worry. So I think the financial models now are also going to have to be reviewed and revisited, because if they carry on the way they are, they're always needing a safety net. That's not good enough,
So, Chris, you mentioned that one, and I totally agree with you. But it's one thing, if you want something positive out of this, is that the world has come to a complete standstill, practically, for about 3 months.
Yeah.
And yet, somehow, we're still able to provide food and sustenance and place of living for the planet, for the population on the planet.
Yeah.
Yes, things were hard, but this is not the 1900s. This is not the 1800s. It looks like we've really achieved quite a bit as a civilization. The question is, we know now what's important. Like you said, that's not only the bottom line. That is fleeting. And we saw how fleeting it is. It can go away like this.
Yeah.
We know how to sustain society, how to work together. When we talk, you and I, about sustainability, efficiency, and continuity and the like, we're talking about collaborating so that we are all better for the future. That's what we're talking about. And aviation industry is really in a position whereby we can lead the way. And I'll tell you why. Human beings are social animals. Aviation is what allows humans to do that social thing that we now found it's very, very important. We are all sick of staying at home. We're all sick of looking at the same person over and over again. Aviation is the solution for the dilemma that humans need to be social. We need to do that one. So let's lead the way in doing this the right way after COVID-19.
Yeah, no, 100%, totally agree. And the thing, an awful lot of the items that people are talking about, especially with health and hygiene, because there's definitely going to be more stricter guidelines with health and hygiene in all companies. But that's something that, you remember as kids that you were taught from your grandparents and everybody, but you just seem to let it, it falls off over a period of time. But now that's going to be in the forefront of everything that we do. But I think that's also going to be so important as well with regards to producing countries, with countries linked to their trade agreements. People have got to now start doing things in the right way. Otherwise, it should affect them on what they would see as a profitability opportunity. They've got to do the basics right. Otherwise, you're not allowed into the game. And that's a must. And then obviously, people are talking about now nearshoring, onshoring, and making sure that you've got a little bit more reliance on your home markets than everything in one basket, which unfortunately grew too much over the last 12 years. So that has to change as well. But this business of caring is so important.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, especially here in the U.S., I wrote an article that got published, but it talks about all of a sudden in the U.S. we realize that my healthcare depends on your healthcare,
Yeah.
which I didn't understand in the U.S. very well, but it does, and that means we're all connected. And there's no reason why producing things locally means that people that are doing the production right now are going to be useless. They're going to need to produce things locally as well. It's just that we're going to make things a little bit more efficient. We're going to be cell units that produce stuff, and then these cell units work together as one organism. That's the way I see it. It's not about completely destroying the supply chain. It's about making sure that if a supply chain makes sense, fine. If a supply chain has problems because it cannot be redundant enough so that in case we face a situation like this in the future, hopefully it's not climate change, but any kind of future event like this, then we have to make sure that that chain is adjusted so that we can take care of each other, the caring part that you're talking about. And all of those things require a lot smarter people than I to think about those, but we need to be asking those questions now. We are in timeout. Let's use it correctly. Let's think about the future and the solutions that we can provide.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I 100% agree with what you're saying there about the supply chain. It needs to be more of a plug and place rather than reliance on that one big loop that keeps going round. But it also questions things like just in time, what sort of stock levels, the whole dynamics and the whole framework are going to be rethought and rechecked out. But the one thing is anybody, and I keep saying this, and it's not because of any specific reason other than I'm so passionate about it, anybody that works in QHSS&E, they're going to get a lot more respect now.
Yes.
And anybody that's involved with risk assessment and continuity and emergency response, they are going to go way up in value within an organization, because so much of that was just a tick box exercise by senior management and especially C-suite, because they only seen it as a cost.
Yeah, and not only did they see it as a cost, they saw efficiency as the only measure that they should be looking at. And it turns out that if you're so damn efficient in your supply chain that when you need PPEs, you won't find them when you need them, because we're too damn efficient. We only supplied what was needed for that time. If we're so efficient in how much hospital space we want, when we really need hospital space, that efficiency works against you. It doesn't work for you. So we have to rethink those things through. Risk assessment is extremely important. And don't think of it as a tick in the box, like you said, Chris. We got to think of it holistically about all the risks that are involved. Now we know what happens. Listen, this world is getting more and more connected. This pandemic that's happened, hopefully we will never have one like it. But we are connected, which means our problems are going to be connected. And we got to think of those kind of terms. Where is the weak link in us so that we don't have this kind of a mess when a problem that's international, global happens? These are things that are extremely important to think about.
Yeah, no, and I like that. The fact that globally, yes, we are more connected, but because we're connected as a team, there needs to be a code of conduct and a code of practice for that team to play. And anybody who doesn't, subs bench, transfer, end of career, because you can't afford for this sort of thing to happen again.
No,
it's not fair on so many people. And the thing is, it doesn't matter whether you drive a Ferrari or whether you're on a scooter. You can't use it. It's pointless. It doesn't matter. And everybody has come down to the same level now, and they need to remember that moving forward.
Yeah, and another positive thing that I think people need to think about, and we're moving away a little bit more from the air traffic management here to generalities, but you and I, we're at an age where we've lived a good life, we've had our experiences and the like. But I look at my kids and their kids and the next generation that's coming about, and I'm extremely impressed. They really think globally because they were born connected globally.
Yeah.
And they will be the ones that are finding some solutions as well. We shouldn't be the ones that we're thinking, well, we got to take this on and you guys don't know anything. The new generation actually is the one that's going to lead us out of this thing here, because they know how important connectivity is and they know what is important and what's not important. So a lot of changes are happening in the way people deal with things. For example, cars, right? The way that I see things are going right now with my kids and the like, as much as I love racing cars. I'm a car guy, okay? But I can see that they look at cars as a nuisance. Whenever they want a car, they can get a car. You know, you can get an Uber, you can get a Zip car, you can get anything, right? You don't need, the car is not a necessity. You need to get from point A to point B as quickly and efficiently as possible. You don't need to go looking for a parking spot in the middle of the city and paying more than you pay on your mortgage for a parking spot or for your car. So all sorts of things are changing with the new generation. And hopefully on the air traffic management side, they can show us how we can look at the future and what the needs in the future are and adapt our industry towards those needs.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I agree as well. Listen, let me ask you now, with all that you've seen going on, if you had the chance now, and obviously everybody's going to start pointing fingers at each other, governments have started blaming each other, and this hindsight 2020, I think whoever came up with that term, I don't think they realised that in the year 2020 it would be used so much. But hindsight 2020 knocking on the door. What three things would you do now that you wouldn't have done before had it not been for the experience on this particular pandemic?
Are you talking
from a business perspective?
From a business, in our business standpoint. I would have done a lot less traveling, to be honest with you, to meet with my customers. I would have convinced my customers, which I tried to do a lot more Skyping and a lot more Zooming and the like.
Yeah.
Because this one to me it seemed like we are so, like I said, human beings are social animals. And it's good to be social, but there's other ways of connecting with one another than having to travel in front of you for a meeting for 2 hours and traveling another 14 hours back home. It didn't make sense. So that's one of the things that I would have probably have done a lot less and would have tried harder to convince my customers, my partners and stuff to do online versus for me traveling.
Yep.
The second thing is, and I tried doing a lot of that, but I wasn't really successful. What was do things more smartly, combine with others to actually do surveillance. I was hoping that I would do a regional surveillance for the whole Gulf region, for example, with our wide area multilateration system. And instead of actually every country buying one system and every country operating its one system, we can combine all of those systems and we can share that data, which makes for a more efficient airspace and the like. I wish I was better at being able to convince the air navigation service providers, but a lot of politics gets into it. You know, once you draw a border on a map, somehow it became like that's where, God put it. So to one country versus another country and say, share the information between you. Even though, as you very well know, FlightAware does that already. So, they already know where everything is, right? So we should be able to do a lot more. I wish I was more successful at selling that part of it. You asked for three. That came off the top of my head. The third one. What was the third one that I would want to do? Oh, collaborative decision making. That has been an issue. I mean, in Dubai airports has been trying to get a collaborative decision making in place for a long time. And that is really difficult. It is difficult because human beings have a tendency to want to own something, own an idea, own a report, own an area of responsibility. And collaborative decision making means you have to share some of that ownership with others. And that is a big barrier to overcome. Now, we've done that. At SAAB, we've been very successful with our Aerobond system, particularly in the United States. And it was even more complicated in the United States because, as you know, at an airport, an airline manages their terminal area. It was not the FAA that manages that. So you not only will have to get the FAA to agree to all of this, but you got to have each airline agree to share their information together, and they compete with one another. But we were able to do that through a kind of a dialogue model in which we set them all together and dialogue with one another. And now we have meetings. We used to have meetings on a regular basis in which we know what happened and how somebody jumped in front of line of somebody else, and we shame them in front of everybody else for doing so. And that's how we were able to manage now for everybody to see. If you all want to be more efficient, you all have to follow the same rules and cooperate. I wish I was more successful in the Middle East, my area, in bringing in collaborative decision making, but I think it will come now.
I think it has to. It has to. And just before, I mean, just looking at what you said there, obviously the less travel, okay, I think for all of us, and I think now that people are getting used to people working from home more and trusting that people will work from home if they've been given the opportunity, I think how that will develop is very, very positively. But what will come with it is, yes, you'll get better environment because less commuting, less travel. You're going to get better quality of life because obviously you don't have to sometimes pay to live in big cities. You can go into the country, etc. So there's going to be lots of benefits of working from home. One of the realities that will have to come with it is that you will earn less. But it'll be a certain amount, but it'll be reflective of what's going on. But the quality of life, the cost reduction and the environment will all benefit from that particular less travel. And that's something that's going to happen now for the next few years, irrespective of any incentives or anything. It's going to be less travel for everybody. Yeah. Then you said about working smarter, so combining with others. Okay. Yes. So that is so important. And by combining with others, you also reduce cost, you have better quality of life, and you also have a better impact on the environment. And then the end, which is the cake, which is the collaborative side of things, and trusting people and sharing, those are all the things that come back to what we spoke about, which is care, share, and the cake. And although that's putting it into a very simple basis, it's things that people should do, and it should come easily to everybody, and they should be a lot more open. Now, as far as openness is concerned, one of the questions that I wanted to say to you, when you were talking about the virtual tower, and people will be thinking, my goodness me, I'm going to get on an aircraft that somebody is going to control when I'm ready to take off, another aircraft coming in, and they're going to be doing that from maybe 100 miles away, 200 miles away, or maybe, who knows where, maybe in a man cave at the back of somebody's garden who's got the license and qualifications to do it. And they'll say, yeah, but what about the security? So cyber security is another real threat, and it's on the top, one of the top 5 points that everybody has to consider now with the pandemic, with other obvious things. But what people don't realize is that security fear or that security threat is there in everything that we do now. So whether it's our bank accounts, our transactions, our personal identities, it's already out there. So one of the most important things is that we all do get together and try and make sure that that threat is reduced, and that our protection measures are much better as a collective group or as a collaborative group. But it's that fear, and that's the thing with the consumer, with the public, the customer. The thing that's gearing all of this and an awful lot of innovation is how people pitch it to influence people's fear. And that's such a shame.
It is. And Chris, I mean, you are, I'm really impressed the way you put it. See, yes, there is a possibility of a hacking of a system, whether it is a digital tower, remote tower, if you want to call it that, or any other system that exists currently at the air traffic control center.
Exactly.
So it's not a remote tower, digital tower problem. It's a problem of hacking into electronic systems, right? This is the problem that we all have and face. And so if you think of it globally, as you so nicely suggested, and it's so true that that's how we need to think about it, then we have to solve the problem of hacking. And to solve the problem of hacking, we have to understand what really hacking is. Hacking is stealing my data by somebody else. Yeah. That's basically what it amounts to, right? Now, in before data, people used to steal each other's property and money and all sorts of other things, right? So we put rules and laws and regulations where somebody, when they steal, we put them in prison. We haven't reached that stage with data. We need an international standardization, and we need to put people to understand that there are laws against this, and that data is not free, and corporations can't use my data just because I'm using their website or they're using their little game. This data is extremely important. I think you in Europe are much farther ahead than we are in the US right now on that one, with establishing some laws regarding the ownership of the data that we have, but it needs to go beyond that. This hacking is like huge bank robbery on a big scale, okay?
Yep.
When you can hack systems, especially that would require security and the like. We need an international standardization. Again, cooperation, right? Collaboration between all the different parties, between human beings, in order to get that solved. Because nobody, including the hacker, wants to be on a plane if it gets hacked.
Exactly.
So there's a commonality here that we need to reach and understand. But if there are no rules, regulations, and standards internationally agreed to, we're never going to solve that problem.
I agree. And it's all about foreseeing the future and being a lot more aware of what can happen. I'm definitely going to use your acronym of C, sustainability. Sustainability, efficiency, and environment.
Environmental impact, yeah.
Yeah, definitely going to use that one. And for me, just being a simple old man, my philosophy of care and share the cake is the most important thing that we can all do. Now,
I love
David,
it. Can I use that one?
Oh my God, you're more than welcome to use that, but I doubt. I'm just trying to think now in what environment or in what type of situation you'll use it without people laughing at you. But in principle, care is so important. Consider all responsibilities everywhere, and if people share, then it makes things a lot easier, like anything. And I think all of the people that are going to come out of this with a lot of anxieties, they're going to need, shoulders and people to share their concerns with. And as a community, we've got to not just be focusing on the positive outcome of this, but also bringing everybody else along with us in a positive way as well, because we'll need them in the future.
Yes.
David, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Chris,
when I
it's been a pleasure for
Dubai, I was impressed, and it's always a pleasure to listen to you. I'm also admiring your backdrop there. It's a lot better organised than mine, which is why I've elevated my screen. Really appreciate it. Take care of yourself. And
thank you very much. Look forward to having a drink with you in Dubai when the Dubai Airport Show comes in October.
In October, indeed. Thank you so much, David.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.